week's episode. This week we're talking about Simon Sinek's "What's Your Why," which is a very good thing to remember during a week like this when things are not going as we expected. But I'm Paula Williams with ABCI. We help aviation companies sell more of their products and services.
And John Williams, and I do the back-end stuff, cybersecurity, tech support, network stuff, play the part of the CFO and so forth for her.
Good for you. And I'm Michael Duke. I'm the CEO of DBT.aero. We are an exciting new startup that is focused on making aviation sustainable, affordable, cargo passengers. We're just excited to be part of aviation and see what we can do to make aviation more exciting to more people.
Excellent. So let's just go around the room with first impressions of the book. I love Simon Sinek. I love his TED Talks and all of those things. I'm not as fond of his books as I am of him speaking, but I thought the book was good.
Well, I'm not that enamored with the author, but he does say some things. He actually does a good expose on the trust and why and so forth. My first reaction when I saw the title of the book was, "Oh, great!
I'm not reading this."
Well, no, I mean
unless you make me.
When I was in undergrad school, what do they call it, English Comp? One of the tests I was given was to write an essay on the topic why.
And they're not vague at all.
At that point in time, I'd already thought I had failed the course because of all the other stuff that had gone on. So I said, why not, and turn the paper in. As it happened, I got a B in the course. But anyway, this guy actually went into some depth from the why perspective, being of why you do what you do. But it didn't start that way. I think he took several pages to get to that point. And actually, it was quite interesting.
Okay, my turn. I ran across the book and it's interesting. I have a note in here when I read the book, and I read it May 20th to May 24th, 2014.
Wow.
Which for me is phenomenal because usually it takes me a month or more to get through a book. I just have too many things going on. So I really found the book at that time very impactful, some very interesting insights, and became a fan of Simon Sinek following that, listened to a number of his audio interviews and other things. I have, in reviewing the book in preparation for this book club review, it's interesting that my thoughts on the book and some of the things that he asserts have really changed in the last 9 years. And we can get into that, but overall, at the time, as I say, it was very fascinating, very impactful, really had a big impact. But as I go back now, I have a different opinion as to some of the things he says, and maybe they're nuances, but he reminds me of a business consultant, which I used to be. And business consultants are all about creating models for the world, and everything needs to be fit into the model. And I don't think, looking back now on the model that he creates, I don't think it's as watertight as it seemed to me 9 years ago.
Wow. I think it's interesting that you know the precise dates of when you read this book 9 years ago. Is that because it was in a class or something, or what's the?
No, I almost exclusively read business books. And because I know it takes me forever to get through them, it's
Mhm.
kind of nice to record. So on the inside front cover, I write down when I started the book and then also when I finished the book. And a lot of times I'll start a book and maybe jump around to different chapters, but never finish it. And this one, I was on vacation in Mexico with my wife, and and so I wrote down where I was at in Mazatlan, and I read the book in 4 days on vacation. So anyway,
Wow,
I guess 5 days, but anyways.
that's amazing. I think that's really cool. We actually just before this meeting had lunch with my mom, and so I wanted to relate an experience that relates to the book. When I was a little kid, I was kind of a what is the word? My brother was born exactly on time. I was 3 weeks early, and everything from that point, my mom tells me, was a reflection, of kind of that. I was always the one that was doing crazy stuff, and she was talking about this time that I jumped from the coffee table to the sofa and knocked over a lamp and, I mean, other crazy things. And she was always asking me, why are you doing this? And I never had an answer. So that's always been my association with this question is, it's not a question I've pondered in a positive way. It's always been, something that is thrown at me like, why are you doing this? Why are you walking on top of that wall instead of walking on the sidewalk like a civilized person? And I have no idea. I'm just, I'm a kid. I do what I do, but um I love reframing that into a more deliberate sort of a way, and thinking about that from the perspective of this is why I do what I do. And if people don't know why you do what you do, they can't really trust you. They can't really take the next step in that business relationship because they don't know what you're trying to get out of it. They don't know how that's going to work, etc. So, I think it was a great reframing of a question that had a negative connotation for me from way back when.
Well, I think that's an interesting insight and a reframe and using his model.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and yet, I think I was probably one of those people too that was always doing things. I know I was always in trouble. And for me, it wasn't just jumping from one thing to another. It was, jumping on mom and dad's, bed, falling off, hitting my head on the cedar chest, and then, going to the hospital and getting stitches, or doing the same thing in the basement when I'm a little older and hitting, a table right above my eye for, one evening while my dad's out of town. It's raining, pitch black, raining. And my dad comes home from this business trip. The door, all the lights are on, the door's unlocked. There's, blood in the bathroom, and he's like, oh, God, what's going on? Well, luckily, the phone book in those days, we had phone books.
Mm-hmm.
The phone book is open, and he's scanning the page to see what's on the page, and it says Corning Hospital. So he calls and says, "Is there Mrs. Duke in the emergency room?" Well, yes, there is. Would you like to speak to her? So of course, Mike is the one who's the cause of all of this. But anyways, to me, I think there's, and I guess this kind of comes to maybe the insight that I had as I went back through the book this time. And I will refer to a page in the hardback copy.
Okay.
On page 41, and whatever the page is, and the Kindle version or the softback.
Yeah.
He's giving an example of how Apple, he says, actually communicates.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that they do. I'm digressing, but I don't think that Apple really does communicate that way. I think that Apple had a marketing campaign, and maybe Steve Wozniak at some point was, had these thoughts, or maybe it was Steve Jobs that had the thoughts. But I don't think that Apple really believes that they challenge the status quo and believe in thinking differently in everything they do. They certainly don't do today, as far as I'm concerned. They're just another product company, another tech company, and they're trying to move tech forward. To me, as I look back on it, I really think that there are people who see the contrarian view.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a contrarian view. And the contrarians tend to be the ones that innovate, that try things that, are outside the norm. And I think if you look back on, your life, you would find that in many respects, you're that contrarian. It's not that you were deliberately, as a why, saying, well, why? I challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
I don't think people do that. But I think there's a predisposition for a certain group of people who want to say, I don't see it like everybody else sees it. I see something different.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go try that. And so it's just a contrarian viewpoint. Now, he talks about, we all want to be part of something and we want to be part of a cause. And I'm not sure, again, that it's that black and white. I mean, I look at my kids, and my kids, one's a jock, and one was into whatever, all the black and the whole bit. And I mean, they each found some place where they could connect, but I think they were also finding a way where they could stand out. That kind of that contrarian thing. So each one of them is looking for a way to stand out from the rest of the family, from other people, and found a group that they could connect with. And so I think that's really it. In these examples that Simon was giving, were the people really at some gut level saying, oh, I challenge the status quo, I need to align myself with Apple? I don't think that's true, because I think there are plenty of people inside Microsoft who are saying, I challenge the status quo. I'm looking for a new way to do something, a better way to do something. I think that's just how people are. And some are more aligned with that than others, but they still need to find that home. And some find that home in Apple, and some find that home in Microsoft. Some find the home somewhere else. But I've got another thought, but I'll pause for now.
No, I love that, and I think you and I were probably kindred spirits as children, because just I don't know that I could ever explain why I did anything before I was maybe I just wasn't that self-aware until I was maybe 10 years old. I was just doing stuff for no apparent reason. And I always felt, what is the word? Criticized by the question, why? And I still do as an adult. That's still my trigger, why are you doing it this way instead of that way? Well, because this is, the way that it works. But
well, I would ask that, sometimes the best answer to a question is a question.
Right. Why not?
Why not?
There you go. And, Apple, their Think Different campaign, I think was perfect for the time, because they were trying to break a mold. They were trying to be outside of the existing sociology of technology, if we want to call it that. The guys in suits in the IBM world, that kind of thing. They wanted to bring technology to the rest of us, and I think it worked really well. But as you say, their why has changed over time to where now they just want to be the one you don't have to think about, the default choice. The iPhone is what you get if you don't have a reason to get something else. And the reason is usually money, but they want to be enough of a default because their technology just works. And I guess that's a more recent tagline that they've been using.
But to me,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. But you think about from the what's your why perspective, their why has shifted from being pirates to being the best corporate performers and over time. And I guess that's okay.
And I guess I would say I'm not sure. I'll come back to my comment. I'm not sure Apple ever had a core why, as Simon Sinek says.
Okay.
That we are different. I think it's brilliant branding.
Okay.
And so before, long before Simon wrote Start With Why, Apple went through several, and I'll call it brandings. One was, the underground, hackers. The Apple One was a hacker computer. I remember the Apple One. You buy pieces and parts and you put them together and you have to load stuff. You have to be a true geek in order to operate one. And when they're doing it to, as Simon says, this is to make the common man, on equal ground with, IBM and the big corporations. I think that's total BS.
Okay.
Steve, it's my opinion, but Steve Wozniak was a geek. And he saw an opportunity and said, I think there's other people like me that would like to have a computer platform without having to do all the soldering and putting the boards together. If I could sell them the components and they simply plug the components together, they still have to load the software, they have to program it themselves, etc. But now they have something that they can start to work with, which at the time, the alternative was you buy a Heath kit and you have to do the soldering yourself.
So it was not for the pinstripe guys, but it was for a different counterculture, not the artists and the non-techies. It was for the
techies.
For the hackers, which was a different subculture.
And so it started out as, there's probably other people like me. And Steve Wozniak was right. And Steve Jobs was a sales guy and went out and sold it. Well, one thing led to another. They improve. Now you're a business and you're constantly trying to improve. What would our customers like? How can we sell more? Well, we need to improve it. And they keep improving and keep improving. And even from the beginning, it was, whether it was by design, specifically, strategically, or whether it simply was kind of how they thought, it was always more of a closed architecture. Here is the whole thing. It just works. And I think that's been kind of a fundamental from day one. And to me, that's more of a, if you look at Apple, what is their belief system? It just works. It's a closed architecture. You really don't need a lot outside what we're going to provide you. And in some ways, it's really annoying. It's kind of a big brotherish approach that says, we know best. You don't need all that other stuff. Just buy from us. We know what you need. It's really kind of total nonsense.
We're going to lock down the system because, and in their defense, in order to provide the kind of service that they do, they have to kind of have a baseline. And, I'm in the middle of this, I guess, or John and I are in the middle of this as a business owner. If everybody has their own gear and their own tools and their own everything, then how do you help when somebody runs into a problem? It's, we kind of have to have a consistent tool set in order to function and in order to provide the service that we need to our clients and to our customers. But if one of our customers wants to go out and get some crazy email system that we've never heard of, that's great, but they're on their own, in terms of if they run into a problem or whatever.
But see, that's a business decision. Apple has said, we want to be the place that you go for all of your services, your hardware, everything. And that's how they do it. So by closing down the system, now they can provide support. Well, what do you do if you aren't on Apple? You have a PC or some other computer system, which there still are a few. you go to Geek Squad or somebody else. There are other people that provide that support, but it can't be done by the mothership, if you will, because of the variability.
Yeah.
Apple can do the support because everything's locked down. And so it's a strategic business decision to be able to say, we are going to own more of the value chain. And the way we do that is by closing the system so that we can reasonably support people.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. And it's kind of a tangent, but it is definitely consistent to the, what's your why? You're going to make different decisions based on what you're trying to accomplish and what your reasoning is behind it. And if you haven't given that enough thought, then you could make some really big mistakes, some really big missteps with people.
And so, I'll throw out my other thought around, do people, and we're using Apple as an example, we can use
of course, yeah.
Amazon or somebody else, but, why do people buy white earbuds?
Mm-hmm.
They buy white earbuds because it says something about who they are. Are they specifically thinking about their why? And, I'm thinking differently and going against Big Brother? No way. They're actually thinking about, how do I blend in and show everybody that I have an Apple product? Mm-hmm. So to me, this is really a different why that Simon isn't really getting to. I think does it go down to, the limbic, decision? Probably. They probably don't even know they're doing it.
Right.
It's the same question. Why do people buy Gucci handbags or other products from LVMH?
Mm-hmm.
It's not because the quality is so much better than anything else out there that they need to spend $4,000 for a handbag.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not. I mean, is the quality good? Yeah, absolutely. But, is it $3,500 worth of materials and quality and everything else, and there's a small margin? No, and they know that. Mm-hmm. It's probably a $500 bag, but they're paying $4,000 because it says something about who they are.
Yes.
And that's why people have the white earbuds. It says something about who they are.
Right.
And I think that's really the result of branding.
Yeah.
So right. To me, the concept, and I think Simon Sinek is a very observant consultant who has been able to look at things from that 30,000 foot view and come up with some very interesting insights and create a model that people can connect with. And that's great. I think that's really great.
It is.
At the same time, I don't think the model works in all of the situations he's trying to apply to, because I think it really comes down to some brilliant branding in the examples that he's using, not necessarily a person's why. Yeah. And once that branding is established, now you have a herd of people who say, probably from the limbic, inner piece, and they're not doing it about, I don't think they're specifically thinking about why. They're simply saying, I want to be part of that crowd. I want the white earbuds. I want the Mercedes. I want the BMW. Okay. Why do you have a BMW instead of Mercedes? Well, people who have those two different vehicles have very strong opinions about why one is better than the other. Is one better than the other? Not really. I mean, maybe for a specific application.
Yeah. Mission dependent. Yeah.
It's all dependent. I think it's really a lot more. What it says is these companies where people identify with the brand have done a good job of branding and gotten to people's limbic system such that they want to identify and make decisions from that place.
Gotcha. Well, and I agree. I think he's oversimplifying a complex situation. And John, you took that class where, there were the different layers of being, and we talk about this in branding, when we do personal branding for someone. And often for a solopreneur, they say, well, my brand is the same as my personal brand. And that is never entirely true. I mean, my personal brand loves to ski, but that has nothing to do with my company. There's a lot of things that are true at this level and not at this level. And that doesn't mean I'm being duplicitous. And that doesn't mean that Apple was being duplicitous. They may have really wanted everybody to think different, and they may really want everything to just work. That may be true at that level, but then there's a deeper level of meaning as well that isn't necessarily being dishonest, but it's just, that why is going to be a slightly different angle from the altitude that you're seeing it from.
Well, and I think you could take the other side of the coin.
Okay.
The IBM Apple coin.
Okay.
Apply the same argument to not IBM, but the Microsoft PC. Because now you have to be the techie if you got a PC. You don't have to be a techie if you got an Apple.
Yeah, so it's flipped, almost reversed.
Exactly. And I am probably more contrarian than I mean, growing up, I knew I was, but then it's a lot more subtle now. I mean, I don't have white earbuds. It's not because I don't want them or because I could get them. It's because I have hearing aids that are better. They resolve an issue, but they're also hooked into my phone. So if I get a phone call and I'm talking at the airport or something like that, people look at me because they can't.
Yeah, he's talking to himself.
Yeah, and they see the phone and they give me a questioning look, and I said, "Hearing aids, see?"
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I know the white earbuds are almost a universal "don't bother me" symbol as well. I mean,
exactly.
There have been times when I've walked through airports or other places wearing white earbuds without anything on them, just because I didn't want to be bothered. I wanted to be alone with my thoughts while I was navigating this situation. So yeah, you can mean different things from different ways of communicating.
But I like your thoughts on the whole approach to thinking it's a branding issue rather than a deep down why they do something, because I'm not at all sure that's the case anymore. In fact, ever since I wrote that "Why Not?"
Yeah.
I mean, when somebody asks me why, I'm got to stop the instant response of "Why not?" And then I got to talk about it for a little bit.
You're also triggered by the same thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wow. What are the chances? And I think we all agree, it sounds like we all agree that, the book had some great ideas, but it was probably an oversimplification.
Yeah.
On some things. Cool. Anything else you want to add, or should we go around and wrap up and give it a 1 out of 10 rating, or, well, give it a 1 to 10 rating. I shouldn't say 1 out of 10 because I don't want to bias the results here. And it wasn't that bad. So, it was actually, I thought, a really entertaining and useful read. But
there are different sections, and the sections are very interesting. Leaders need a following. Of course they do. And so there's some concepts in there about leadership, good information there. How to rally those who believe. I think maybe that's less effective than some other books or things that I've seen, but still the concepts are there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And he talks about who are the why people, who are the how people, who are the what people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of interesting to kind of self-identify and say, oh, am I a why, a who, or a how person?
Yeah.
Sorry, not a who, a what.
A what?
a why, a what, and a how person, which is interesting. And it's interesting that it's like, okay, well, the why people are dreamers, and that's true. And I think he says they're also entrepreneurs, but he really says that the how people are entrepreneurs, because they're like, okay, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And to me, that's really important, as I think about, people in my past, how would I categorize these people? Because a lot of them are brilliant, brilliant idea people, but ideas are a dime a dozen. And I remember as a kid, thinking about, I'm so tired of my LPs, getting scratched. I'm into lasers. Why don't we just use a laser? And, and then you don't have to worry about scratched LPs. And I was noodling all the ways you could basically create what became a DVD player, a CD, etc. So it's like, great ideas, but
somebody stole your idea. Some person stole your idea.
That's the problem. There's so many ideas that are out there. It really comes down to, who is going to go out and do the how. Yeah. How do I take this idea and make it real? And, that's what we're struggling with, with the new aircraft. How do you get into the marketplace? How do you take good ideas or seemingly good ideas and turn them into reality? And then find out if they really are good ideas, because the market either says, yep, we like that, or no, we don't like that.
Right.
So there's some interesting parts of the book that, I really like. And at the end of the day, he says the biggest challenge is success. Well, yeah, I think that's one of Apple's problems. He uses them back in, 2009 when he wrote the book as an example of this company that's really thinking differently and doing things. And I will admit, you look at true innovations, there are not a lot of companies that have multiple innovations that really change things. And Apple has had a number of them.
They haven't, though. They didn't invent the MP3 player. They didn't invent the PC. They didn't invent anything. They just implemented it better.
Well, that's it.
So they're kind of how people too.
Oh, absolutely. But if you think of that implementation, there's lots of people out there that have an idea of music. Okay, how do I get music, on that I don't have to carry around a cassette, or in the next case, an actual CD. Okay, well, why don't we make it digital? So somebody else had the idea, but nobody was able to make it simple to use, and Apple had that innovation of creating a simple to use device.
Okay.
Now, the next innovation was how do you get the music on your device? And the iTunes Store was a real innovation that changed, that also then became the App Store and all these other things, and other people have copied it. So when people start copying what you're doing, you can kind of point and say, that's a real innovation.
That is an innovation. That's true. Okay.
An iPhone, were other people doing cell phones? Yeah. Did people really have cell phones that were computers in your hand? Well, sort of. There was the Palm Pilot. Apple had their Newton, but none of them really.
BlackBerry, right? The thumbs.
BlackBerry.
Yeah.
Again, at what point did you really have a full-blown computer in your hands? And Apple was kind of the first one that gave you a full-blown computer with additional apps that you could load on a computer. So again, is it a copycat? Yeah, but it broke new ground.
It did. Right. Exactly. Many innovations, but
and as Simons then talks about, the biggest challenge is success. Apple, when was the last new innovation from Apple? It's been a long time.
It has. They have had a few, but they weren't as successful. Some of the things that came before.
The last introduction that I can remember is the iPad, which is a nice re-implementation of a Newton or a Palm Pilot. It's kind of a hybrid phone, but it doesn't give you the ability to make a phone call,
right?
Unless you're on Wi-Fi. So
it had some virtual reality innovations, I think, as well, as far as hardware and software. And again, they're tiny innovations. They didn't invent the goggles, but they did I think combine the hardware and software in slightly different ways, and provide some capacity there. But it wasn't as groundbreaking as anything so far, or maybe I just don't know enough about it to say whether or not it was. But
And none of them have been hits
yet. True. And I think virtual reality is still a field that has a lot of room to grow. So we'll see where it goes. I think, they have some things that might do better than we think they're going to. I don't know.
We'll see. It's hard. It's hard to keep innovating.
It is.
And, when you're the top dog, it's a lot more fun to be the outsider, which is what Apple was in the early days.
Yeah.
They're the outsider, and it's easy to attract those hardworking, crazy people who see themselves as contrarians and want to identify with other contrarians. And now you have this cast of characters who are all trying to knock off the top dog. Well,
right.
If you're the top dog, how do you continue to get all these contrarians to come in and be part of your organization?
Right. And then you have the founder's dilemma, or teaching the elephant to dance, or whatever you want to call it. Once the company gets to a certain size, everybody has those, their why has to shift, or has to shift to a how for some amount of time, and then maybe shift into why again, or have a why department.
Well, but you assume they're not doing much, if anything, but the true R&D department is going to have to be under wraps until they have something they can actually go about producing.
Right. And they have actually a pretty long tradition of doing an offsite pirate team of some kind, to work on particular products. So it's almost like they have to exit the company in order to innovate now, because they've become not the innovators that they were. So, they have to split off a group in order to have the freedom to do what they once did. They've got too much inertia in the company, Well,
I think it was Drucker who said, show me your calendar and show me your checkbook, and I'll tell you what you value. The idea is, where you spend your time and how you spend your money will tell us how, what it is you value. And,
I would love to hear Simon Sinek's thoughts about what Drucker said. It would be interesting to see if he could boil that down, because I bet that would make a great TED Talk.
Yeah. And so if you look at Apple, where are they spending their money and where are they spending their time? What appears from, from shareholder, conferences and all of the releases of new software, et cetera, they're spending their time and money on mostly the same stuff. Do they have some autonomous things? They've been working on an autonomous self-driving car for 15, 20 years. But are they really putting serious time and money behind it? Or is that really being done by other people?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think as I look, and the intent wasn't to really be talking about Apple, but I guess it comes back to Simon's, start with why. I don't think Apple has a clear why anymore.
Okay.
And as a result, they're spending their time and money on new product development and iterating rather than innovating.
Okay. Let me turn that around. And actually, this is kind of a good way to wrap this up is, I know you have a why. Do you want to share it? And we'll just kind of go around the room with that.
Well, I guess my personal why is that I having owned an FBO, I saw how private aviation can change the life of someone who can afford it, whether it was their ability to conduct business. Hey, I flew to, from New Mexico to California for, a meeting, and I'm back home for dinner. So, it impacts their business. It impacts their family life, their ability to go places on the weekend that other people can't get to because, it's too far to drive or too expensive or too time consuming to take commercial. And so as I looked at all of that and the affordability, at the end of the day, I really believe aviation holds the future to change how people live, work, and play. But aviation needs to be accessible, affordable, and I guess environmentally, it has to be human friendly.
Yeah.
That means it's quiet or sustainable or however you look at it. But it has to be, human friendly in that respect. So my why is really about, changing the world, making affordable, efficient, low cost, human friendly air transportation flight available, whether for people or cargo or as drones and, agriculture, surveying, all of those things. It's just too expensive. It's too noisy. It's too unfriendly for humans.
And not a good neighbor.
It's not a good neighbor. And so I believe that all of that can change with the right technology. And that's our focus, is to bring that technology to the world. And we're doing that not only through our novel airframes, but we're developing some powertrains that will be very human friendly.
I love that. I know we go through these phases of neat, messy, neat, messy, neat, messy. And, as we evolve as a company and as we evolve our thinking and things like that. And I think yours is getting a lot more clear, as time goes on, which is great. And I love that, that why. John, do you want to go next, or do you want me to?
Well, my why is probably has to do with a lot of experience. And having been through corporate America for years, and I won't say how many, but I retired from there. And so I've done almost everything you can do in corporate America, from starting off as a techie, going up into the superstructure of corporations. So now, I've started a few companies and killed a few. So I have a chance now to help her succeed. And to me, that is more fun than actually doing it myself, because I get to play with all parts and pieces, from cyber tech, CFO, spreadsheets, research. I write utilities from time to time to help massage data. And, that's just fun. And so that's why I like to do this.
That's cool. And yeah, it works for me because it all gets done, which is wonderful. And a lot of it is stuff that I don't want to do. But I know, if you were to ask me before I read the book, and, our tagline forever, if you listen to any of our podcasts, is we help aviation companies sell more of their products and services. Mm-hmm. When you go a step deeper into that, I think, I grew up as a capitalist idealist. Capitalism is a meritocracy. Aviation is the coolest industry on the planet. Therefore, the coolest aviation companies should be the most successful, but that's not the way the real world is. So I think the best marketed companies win. So I guess, now I've kind of shifting my thinking, and I'm going through a messy stage of trying to figure out how to crystallize that into a thought of how do we help the good guys in aviation win? And it's not always the best companies that win. It's the best marketed companies that win. So if we ally ourselves with the best companies and give them the best marketing, we win capitalism, which is great. Yeah.
The book even alluded to
the
best marketed companies. So
yeah, exactly. So, I think if we can ally reality with idealism, the reality is that you need fantastic marketing. The idealism is that the best companies win. So we need to marry those two ideas in some way. So anyway, real quick, I would give this book, I'll say an 8. I give Simon Sinek a 10, but I'll give this book an 8 just because I don't think it's his best work. And
I'll jump in.
Okay.
Back to your comment about your company's why.
Mhm.
I think it's a two-step process.
Yeah.
One is your company's why is exactly what you have today.
Mhm.
You want your clients to be successful.
Yes.
The step zero is how you select the companies to work with. And if you don't feel they align with, they're not the best, you don't take them on.
Yeah.
But the ones you do take on, you're committed to make sure that they, get the best and become successful. I don't remember who said it, but basically, a company without a sale isn't a business, it's a hobby.
Yeah.
So until you're selling stuff, you're not a business. And that's the key, is the people who are able to sell are the ones who are successful.
Yeah.
Or at least for some period of time. As for the book, I really liked it, particularly when I first read it. I would have given it a 10. It was really impactful, very insightful. Having 9 more years of thinking about it and living, some interesting entrepreneurial challenges. There's some nitpicks, and I think I probably, made the nitpicks seem larger than they are. But, I really do like the book. There are not a lot of books out there that I would put on my top 10. And this is probably somewhere in there, maybe top 20. But I do really like it. And particularly at the time, it was really groundbreaking for a lot of people. There was nobody talking about this.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I guess I would probably still give it a 10. Although today, if it came out today, I think it would be a different rating.
Okay.
When it came out, I think it was a 10. And it's definitely worthy of a read. There's a lot here to think about. And that's one of the things I like, is when a book challenges me and makes me think about it. And I've had to think about it as I've gone through it more recently to say, do I still believe that? Do I still feel the same way? And I like that these are deep, challenging topics that he addresses, and he addressed them in a fresh way in 2009.
Oh, agreed. It started a whole chain of books and things. So it's worth something for that. Maybe I should give it another point, but okay. Anyway. John, what do you think?
I'm in the middle. I'll call it a 9.
Okay.
And that was just my first shot at it. So
yeah, from the title, you would have given it a 6 or less, right?
Say it again.
Before you read it, just from the title, you would have given it a 6 or less, just because you didn't want to read it.
The title, and then I would get going downhill from there for the first. I don't know until he explained what he meant by why.
Right. Why are you making me read this book? Okay.
But once he, I don't know. I guess there's a, I don't know, 15th or 20th page. Whenever he then defined what he meant by why, then it made more sense, and subsequent pages caught my attention and I could read.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, we're just about out of time. We'll go ahead and close this up with introductions again. I'm Paula Williams, ABCI. We help aviation companies sell more of their products and services.
And I support her with installing.
And I'm Michael Duke, founder and CEO of DBT.aero, and we are making sustainable flight affordable and quiet. And so we're excited about changing aviation and blessing lots of lives in the years to come.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and break, and then we'll be back for group office hours momentarily. Have a great week or hour or a couple of minutes till I see you again. All right. Bye-bye.